Jai Sri Krishna. We start with the invocation prayers. Om Ajnanam Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshur Urmilidam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Vasudevasutam Devam Kansa Chanuramardanam Devaki Param Anandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Hello, welcome back to this session. We are talking about a wonderful topic today, relishing purification through action. By acting, by engaging in action, we can purify our heart. We can come closer to connect with who we truly are inside by acting. And that action that we take is known as karma. Karma means action. And purifying the heart is done to connect with Lord Krishna. Connection means yoga. So when we talk about how to purify the heart while we are acting, while we are doing things, in order to strengthen the connection we have with the Lord, we're trying to understand, what did Lord Krishna say to Arjuna in terms of what kind of actions lead to this purification process? How are these actions supposed to be taken? And what are the obstacles that prevent us from purifying our hearts as we undertake actions? This is very important questions that are answered in this chapter. The whole point of purifying the heart is to strengthen the intelligence. Because as we know, the intelligence is needed for us to move from the material plane to the spiritual plane. It connects us with the universal consciousness. That intelligence has to be strong. Last week, we talked about why, because of the mind being so disturbed, because we're always fighting against duality of the mind, we cannot really leverage on the intelligence because the intelligence is weak. So on the one hand, we want to develop the intelligence to connect with the higher level. On the other hand, we need to control the mind. So today, I'm going to gradually lead you from the topic yesterday, which is creating an alternative reality, the reality from the material plane to the spiritual plane, how Lord Krishna answered many questions Arjuna posed to make him realize that when he views things from a different perspective, the entire issues look so different from what he thought it was. But then Lord Krishna told Arjuna that you have to use the Buddhi Yoga, intelligence that you have. And we're going to talk about what are the considerations for us to tap on that intelligence. What is the benefits? Why do I have to be engaging in Buddhi Yoga? And towards the end, we'll talk about what are the characteristics of such people who have reached that stage, that they're able to use the intelligence to raise the level of consciousness to a higher level of consciousness. This will be the tail end of chapter 2, and then we'll move on to Karma Yoga, which is acting with the purpose of purification. We'll see how far we can go. We don't have to finish the whole chapter, but what's important is we understand. We understand why Lord Krishna recommended to Arjuna to fight. to act. And not just renounce. Why? What is the reason? We also should understand what are the actions that were recommended to Arjuna for him to act in accordance with his prescribed duties and how he should do that. And towards the end of this chapter are the obstacles, all right? So if you allow me, we have a very wonderful session for you today. We will go slowly. I will see how far we can go on the chapter 3. We might stop halfway, never mind. We can then carry on next week, okay? So let's go and have a quick recap of what we did last week. We stopped off at this point where I talked of Buddhi Yoga. When Lord Krishna told Arjuna, I have explained to you Sankhya Yoga or analytical knowledge regarding the nature of the soul. Now listen, O Partha, as I reveal Buddhi Yoga or Yoga of the intellect. When you work with such understanding, you'll be freed from bondage of karma. So this really refers to the yoga of consciousness, the intelligence that promotes self-development and consciousness, which helps unite the mind with the higher consciousness to overcome the weakness of the mind. That is Buddhi Yoga. That's intelligence. But for us to be able to relish this intelligence, there is a combination of things we need. We need to act. We need knowledge. And we need a devotional attitude towards the Lord, which is Bhakti Yoga. So these are what we call the integrated concept, which the Lord is going to describe in chapter 3, chapter 4, and up till chapter 12. So basically, we are referring to the need to develop a very strong intellect. And why do we need a strong intellect? Because it will develop a strong willpower to overcome the duality of the mind, to enable us to start seeking what is called transcendental desires. No more physical, emotional, intellectual, transcendental desires. So this strong intellect actually comes from purification of the heart. So as the heart gets purified, the mind, the intellect becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And what makes the intellect strong is the soul. The soul has what is called an uninterrupted power supply because the soul is eternal. It's full of bliss, full of knowledge. So the bliss and knowledge comes from the soul. As you connect, the strength comes. So it's very interesting and very important to know that as we go deeper and we start thinking in the context of the soul and not the body, we are actually slowly building the willpower and intellect. So these are the stages or the different connections that collectively form the Buddhi Yoga. The Nishkama Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. What we are trying to do is to look at how detached engagement is required, because detached engagement is anchored on the knowledge of the Absolute undertaken with a mood of devotional service to the Lord. So when you say detached engagement, that's Niskama Karma Yoga, anchored on the knowledge of the Absolute, that's Dhyana Yoga, and the mood of devotional service is Bhakti Yoga. So this is a summary of how the purification of the heart gradually builds the intellect and allows the willpower to emerge to overcome the duality of the mind and what holds us back from developing further. So what are the benefits of acting in Buddhi Yoga? There are 4 main benefits. The first benefit is the intelligence is fixed, meaning it is one-pointed, it is focused, it is not moving in different directions, it is not weakened, it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. and fixed in the direction towards seeking self-realization and seeking a connection, an ability to serve the Lord. That is the first benefit of Buddha Yoga. The second benefit is, by engaging in Buddha Yoga, there are no karmic reactions, because when we undertake Niskama Karma Yoga, there is no karmic reactions. And we talked about this last week. So the intellect is strengthened, there are no karmic reactions. And because there are no karmic reactions, there is no more birth and death cycle. Birth and death cycle is due to karmic reactions. We have to repay the karmic reactions, which means we are liberated, moksha, from the cycle of birth and death. The other benefit is you become indifferent to the Vedas. Why? Because the Vedas actually have a huge area of information about how to reach God, what to do, what kind of mantras to speak, thousands and thousands of mantras. But at the end of the day, the purpose is to reach the ultimate supreme personality of Godhead, to serve the Lord. But that service comes from Bhakti Yoga. So it's very nicely stated in one of the verses that the purpose served by a small well of water is naturally served by a large lake. Meaning, if we want water, we take it from large lake or small well, doesn't matter. The point is the water is served. So if you want to serve the Lord, if you want to relish the joy within to purify the heart, we don't have to go through and study the entire Vedas. We just have to do what needs to be done. That is to engage in Buddha Yoga. So these are the benefits of engaging in Buddha Yoga. So if somebody is able to do that, somebody has successfully done that, this person has transcended the cycle of birth and death, meaning this person is a liberated soul. But what are the qualities of such a person? This is elaborated towards the end of chapter 2, which states that such a person is satisfied in the self. He does not need anything outside to satisfy him. He is satisfied from within. And it does not respond to dualities. To him, dualities don't matter. Whenever dualities occur, he's easily withdrawn into his senses like a tortoise. And he just remains within himself, because within himself, he experiences a higher taste. This is the symptoms of a Stita Pragya, which means a liberated soul. But it is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita, this is very, very difficult to be a liberated soul. Because even the wise people are easily distracted by senses. Sense control is only possible by unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. So we talked about the characteristics of a liberated soul. We talked about the benefits of Buddha Yoga. And we also talked about what are the considerations for us to engage in Buddha Yoga. Now let us now have a summary of the key learning points before we move on to chapter 3, so that we get everything in good, clear understanding of this chapter. First things first. In this chapter, we were introduced to the concept of the soul. Lord Krishna said that the soul does not perish. The soul is eternal. And the need to discriminate between the body and the soul was emphasized throughout the chapter. We were also talking about the mind, about how Arjuna's mind was so disturbed, how he was controlled by his GPS, grief, pity, and shame, because he was so focused on the body, on the ego, on what he thought was he was. The ego is false in the sense that he is associating him and his friends and relatives in the context of their body. That's a false ego. So as long as that is happening, this battle in the mind continues. And the mind being uncontrolled continues to plague somebody because of the GPS, the greed, pride, and self-centeredness for people who are very rajasic in nature. And for people who are sattvic, it's more to do with grief, pity, and shame. That's like having a sense of compassion for others. Whereas people who are rajasic, they are more concerned about self-centered requirements. So because of this uncontrolled mind, we are stuck in the duality of the mind. We talk about faith, doubt, honor, dishonor, pleasure, pain, and this weakens the intellect. But when we talk about this, we realize this is what happens in the material plane. This is the existing reality that Arjuna was facing. But what we were talking, or rather what chapter 2 was talking about, was how to go on a path of discrimination, how to discriminate between the body and the soul in order to differentiate the real from the unreal. What is permanent, what really matters, and what is temporary, that will perish with time. So the focus was on developing and maintaining an equiposed mind, a mind that is not shifting, that is uncontrolled. It's controlled, it's focused. And this equiposed mind gets its strength from the soul by connecting with the soul through purification process. And that we indicated just now was the UPS, uninterrupted power supply, that supplies the power necessary to stabilize the mind. And this gives a very strong intellect. And then the intellect overshadows the duality issue to a point where you are able to succumb and overcome that tendency to be caught in that mentalities we talked about. So this is the alternative reality, where the GPS is not grief, pity, shame, but guided action, persistence, and being selfless. So this is basically what the topic is about. And if I were to summarize chapter 2, since Arjuna was horrified that he thought of killing his relatives, Krishna began his teachings. First, Lord Krishna brought about the Sankhya philosophy, who said that analytical study of matter and spirit, the soul is eternal, imperishable, material body is inert and is an outer covering. So this Sankhya philosophy introduced the concept of soul against matter. And then we went on to Karma Kanda. Karma Kanda means we are doing things with a fruitive action result. We expect results and use that basis. And he told Arjuna, if you die in the battle, you will be promoted to the heaven. So this is the fruit, the result of fighting. You will be promoted to heaven. If you win the battle, you will rule the earth. So either way, you will win. And dishonor will overcome him if he leaves the battlefield. So these are answers or concerns he raised or addressed by looking at it from the Karma Kanda perspective. Then he went on to Buddhi Yoga or Niskama Karma perspective. And he talked about the art of work in the mode of selfless service, unattached to results of the work, with the mind focused on Krishna, fight simply because it's Krishna's desire, with resolute determination. This is the art of work. This is how it should work. And if it works this way, these are the results. You don't get any sinful reaction, able to get out of a cycle of birth and death. And just now we talked about the symptoms of self-realized souls, where you are free from desire to enjoy, have a steady mind, indifferent from good or evil, have taste for devotional service. And basically, one who is not connected with the Supreme or not doing devotional service cannot have a steady mind, peace, or happiness. So this is basically the summary of chapter 2. Now, when we talked about this, moving from material plane to spiritual plane, which I discussed just now, we must recognize that lust is the problem. Because in the material plane, we tend to contemplate material desires, and satisfying sensual desires is lust. We work to ensure we contribute to self-interest. And because we are thinking of self-interest and contemplate material desires, the connection to the enemies of the mind is very strong. So there's connection to the enemies of the mind, contemplation of material desires, and contribution to self-interest. All this is really lust. But when we talk about spiritual, it's different. The contemplation is of transcendental desires, no more material. And the contribution is for the welfare of others. It's selfless, not selfish. And the connection to lifelong service to the Lord. But this is sacrifice. You have to sacrifice to do this. And what is this karma yoga all about? To act on the basis of sacrifice and to conquer lust. This is what we mean by purification through action is required. If we act and in the process purify our heart, then we are able to act on the basis of sacrifice and conquer lust. And this is really a very wonderful starting point of the next chapter. Now in this chapter, there are a number of sections. Let me just share with you the overview first. First, we will be talking about Arjuna's confusion. Do I renounce or do I act? Do I fight or do I not fight? I'm confused because there's something Lord Krishna said in chapter 2 that seems to be contradictory. Then there's a discussion on Niskama Karma Yoga, which is recommended for Arjuna. Why is it recommended? We'll talk about it. Then we will talk about moving from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga. Karma Kanda means acting for a result, fruitive action. Okay? Karma Yoga means acting without any attachment to results. Then we'll talk of the need to use this Niskama Karma Yoga approach to set the right example for everybody. And the last part is very interesting. How to conquer lust, the greatest enemy. All right, so these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections we're covering. And by going through all this, we will understand how is it through action we are able to purify the heart. So allow me to just give you a very big overview, then I'll go through one by one. The entire topic rests on this section. We start with Arjuna's confusion, renunciation of action, and then it is recommended that he acts, he doesn't renunciate because of 2 reasons. Renunciation is difficult. And even if he's qualified for renunciation, he is supposed to set the right example. So these are the 2 broad-based reasons. Renunciation difficult, it's better to engage in prescribed action with detachment. And one should go from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga. This is what we call the gradual process which one should take. And even if one takes it and you reach the highest level, still you should engage in Niskama Karma Yoga, meaning you already qualified, you already reached that stage, but you still continue. Why? To show the right example. That is why many great acharyas and gurus, they already reached that stage where they don't need to do any action. Still, they perform it to give example to others. But there is a big problem. There is an enemy that stops us from doing this purification process, and that is lust. So one should conquer lust by deliberate spiritual intelligence. This is a summary of the entire topic. So let's go step by step to understand slowly, okay? Are there any questions at this point? No? Great, let's move on. Okay, in chapter 2, verse 46, Lord Krishna said, seek refuge in divine knowledge and insight, O Arjuna, and discard reward-seeking actions that are certainly inferior to works performed with intellect established in divine knowledge. Discard reward-seeking actions. when you do something looking for reward, don't do it. Because it's inferior to work performed with intellect established in divine knowledge. Now, Arjuna is thinking, what? Discard reward-seeking actions. That means don't act and seek refuge in divine knowledge. Hang on. If you're telling me not to act, because if I go in a war, if I fight, I'm trying to win, right? If I'm going to win, that's reward-seeking action. I'm trying to win the war. And you're telling me, seek refuge in divine knowledge. What? That means what? I just sit down and pray and go into some corner and try to gain knowledge. Oh, you just said that. So then, if that's the case, why engage in this ghastly warfare? Which is better? Do I act or do I go in a state of renunciation? Now, I don't know. It's very confusing. So Arjuna at this point is very confused. You see, he's very sharp. He picked up the exact word and he says, hang on, doesn't sound right. Can you clarify? This is a sign of a great student. Two qualities. Number one, very sharp. Picks up every single word and analyzes it and asks for clarification. Because if we didn't ask this question, then a lot of knowledge regarding how we can connect the two will be lost. So how did Lord Krishna deal with this? Very interesting, apparently contradictory statement he made, right? So in summary, from this chapter 2.49, it said, keep far from this distance from abdominal activities, that's killing people, engaging in Buddhi Yoga. So when he said that, Arjuna's question is, why do you want me to fight? If you say intelligence or Buddhi Yoga is better than fighting, then why don't I just engage in Buddhi Yoga? Why don't I just renounce? I just said, you know, I rather drop this and go to the forest and seek renunciation. Now, this is the basis of chapter 3. How Lord explained what he meant by Buddhi Yoga in a more detailed, interesting manner. So what happened was, when Arjuna is confused, he's talking about fight or renounce. Now, fight is active. Active is karma yoga, devotional service. Renounce is inactive, jnana yoga, empirical, philosophical. Actually, they're the same goal. Here, Arjuna misunderstood the word renunciation to be cessation of work. That means retirement. He thought that when you say renounce means go to secluded place and chant the holy name. This is not advice, unless someone is fully trained. You see, Lord Krishna explained to Arjuna that there are two types of people based on faith. Some people, they have a very strong faith in the Sankhya Yoga. They are Sankhya Yoga practitioners. They are into Jnana Yoga. They renounce work. And some people are Buddhi Yoga practitioners. They perform prescribed work. So these are two types of people. Yes, is there a question? Shobha?
Okay, Rumesh, I was just wondering, earlier in your earlier slide, you mentioned, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, this is Shobha, yeah. So in your earlier slide, you mentioned that one should not enjoy the fruits of one's labor. The earlier slide, I think towards the bottom.
Yes.
So I was just wondering, if it is done with great sincerity and devotion, what's wrong with it? I mean, is it because it's related to the senses? And if that is so, if it's done, like I said, with your full heart and soul, what's wrong with enjoying what you have done?
Wonderful question. Wonderful question. Shobha, can you just hang on for a short while? As I'm going through this, I'll answer your question.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I know that question was coming. I also wondered that for a long time. And I believe that by studying this, you will understand better. So let's just move on slowly and then we'll get to the answer, okay?
Right, thank you.
Right. So when we talk about this process of Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga, Sankhya Yoga is a very gradual process of purifying the senses by philosophical process. You know, it talks about spirit, matter, and people who like this system, they go in experiential nausea philosophy and ultimately they reach Lord Krishna. Karma Yoga is a more direct process, very easy, sublime, very purifying process. Work in Krishna consciousness and you release from bondage, depend on Krishna, can be easily controlled. So ultimately you reach that level. There are two classes and two ways, all right? Now what Lord Krishna is saying, this is the recommended path. I think you should go on this path. Now let's understand, why did Lord Krishna say, do Karma Yoga, Niskama Karma, don't go for Sankhya Yoga? Why? Well, the first reason was that you might as well take a direct path. Why go in an indirect manner? If you're going from Ipoh to KL, take the highway. Why take all the old road and spend so much time? It's simple, straightforward, direct. So that's the first reason. Second reason is, you know, when you want to succeed in Buddhi Yoga, you depend on Krishna's mercy. But you talk of Sankhya Yoga, is your own personal endeavor, and it's very difficult to sustain things when you don't have the strength and commitment, and it takes a long, long time. But if Krishna is merciful, he can see that you're sincere, honest, he will give his mercy to you. So that's the second benefit. The third is, there is surety of success. If you take Buddhi Yoga, Bhakti, Karma, Jnana Yoga together, integrated, you will succeed. There's no question. Lord Krishna said you will succeed. There is no flaw in the process. But in the Sankhya Yoga, you are not sure. You may never reach the highest rank. And finally, the ends and the means are the same. Krishna consciousness is self-purification process. So as you're doing it, you're purifying yourself. But in the Sankhya Yoga, initial purification required by prescribed duties. So in other words, there are very clear, defined benefits of engaging in Buddhi Yoga compared to Sankhya Yoga. And these are very, very relevant and very good reasons that we should appreciate, because it gives you a more direct path. All you have to do is to be honest, truthful, sincere, and you are sure of success. The Lord says, I promise you, there is no doubt that you will reach me. And what you are doing is what you're going to get. You are purifying yourself. So these are the reasons why that is the case. Now, what is important is that renunciation should not be accepted without purification of the heart. That is a key point here. So when we renounce, we go somewhere and try to reach out to the Lord, but the heart is impure. There are many unfulfilled desires which will crop up in the mind. And this unfulfilled desire will be creating disturbance to society. So this is the problem. But when you are purifying the heart, then only you can improve. Because for materialistic men, by purifying the heart, you then do prescribed duties. Not performing prescribed duties does not give freedom from reaction. So it is the heart that we're talking about. When someone is transcendental service to Lord, accepted by Lord as Buddhi Yoga, does not perform prescribed duties, he commits a sin. That's why Lord Krishna does not approve renunciation, because the process of purification has to take place. And it takes place through prescribed duties. So what are prescribed duties? In the Vedas, prescribed duties are duties you have to do according to your station and occupation. Station means initially you are brahmachari, then grashtra, then you go higher until you become a sannyas. That is state of life, stage in life. And then depending on your nature, you can be a bit high sattvic qualities, brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, depending on the qualities that you have, So your nature, your prescribed duties have to be performed for you to be able to purify the heart, because this is prescribed. That is what you have to do as a means of sacrifice. So what actions purify the heart? Prescribed duties. Now, when we talk about today's world, you are a son, you have a father who is old. It's your prescribed duty to take care of your father because you are the son. Similarly, if you have a wife, she's sick, you are supposed to take care of her. That's your duty. So when we realize that we have duties, we take it, not because of any desire, but because it's our duty that is becoming undertaking karma. So renunciation cannot be taken without purification. That is why you have to go through the whole process of, but premature renunciation discouraged because you remain impure, heart not purified without doing prescribed duties. I mean, if you sit somewhere all along and don't do anything, you're not doing your duties. You can revert to material activities. People cannot remain inactive. And basically what you are is a pretender. You may physically restrain yourself, but dwell on sense objects in the mind. That's how you delude yourself. Now, instead of remaining impure and being a pretender, it's far more superior to seek purity and be sincere. How do you seek purity? By trying to control the senses of the mind. And have to be sincere in performing karma yoga with the senses without attachment. Now, let's understand, why do we say without attachment? What's wrong with having attachment? That's a very good question, which we're going to talk about. Now, we say that people, because the soul is very active, it has to act, it needs engagement, and the soul is in contact with material nature, it acquires the modes of material nature. Whether you like it or not, the modes, tamasic, sattvic, rajasic, is there. Now, when you are talking about Vedas, there's prescribed duties recommended in Shastras. These prescribed duties purifies the soul from affiliate. In other words, by doing the duties, you purify the soul. And by purifying the soul, you lead to Krishna consciousness. So when we are talking about the soul and we engage in these prescribed duties, there is no loss even if there is a fall down, because we already raised it, we already improved. And the occupational duties is dictated by the illusory engine, which is Maya, which is the modes of material nature. Now, one who restrains senses but mind dwells is a pretender. Deep meditation, but the mind dwells on sense objects. Philosophy, no value. Knowledge stolen by illusory energy. You are thinking of self-enjoyment, social orders. These are the social orders. Follow the rules and regulations. Then you go to gradual purification. Someone who is sincere. Sincere means what? Sincere means control the senses, engage in karma yoga, is far superior. Now, these are the requirements for renunciation, knowledge and purification. There must be knowledge. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of who am I? Who am I means my soul. Who is God? What is my connection with God? That is absolute knowledge. And the process of purification gradually allows that knowledge to emerge. So you are working, you are undertaking the prescribed duties sincerely, and when you're taking the prescribed duties, slowly, the heart is being purified. It's like a mango becoming slowly ripened. This is needed for you to truly renounce. So you cannot just jump into renunciation. You have to go through the process of karma. Now, the question Shobha asks is, why detachment? Prescribed action with detachment is better for Arjuna. Performing prescribed is better than not working because there is a gradual purification of the heart when you do it. But when you renounce it, you fall down since activity is given up before purifying. Then Arjuna is a Kshatriya. He's supposed to do his duties. So he has to engage in war. So work should not be given up without purification of materialistic propensity. So this is what is needed. The gradual purification of the heart through undertaking prescribed duties. This is not recommended. Now, without prescribed duties, again, unfulfilled desire activity will lead to sinful action. That we know. Meaning we are doing things that we're not supposed to do. We always have desires. And the desires are never fulfilled. The desires are always unfulfilled. And then we engage in sinful action. So, in short, without knowledge and purification, the path to spiritual advancement is destroyed. So when you say stage of spiritual growth, there are seeds, slowly become seedling, leaves, but these are like the basic manure, basic fertilizers that enable that growth to take place. Two things: purification of the heart and acquisition of knowledge. Now, this is the part which is really important. What do you mean by renunciation? The word renunciation does not mean giving up action. It means giving up attachment to the results. Now, Shobha asked, what is wrong with giving up attachment to the results? Right? Now, I believe that by giving up attachment to the result leads one to being able to focus in the work being done. Again, material plane. You know, I read a lot on management literature about being in the zone. Why are some people so successful in life? Because they can focus, because they can remain focused, because they continue consistently to keep doing and getting better and better and better. Now, hang on. The reason I can focus is because I'm not worried about the result. Can you imagine a batsman going to hit the ball in the cricket and the bowler is going to throw the ball? The batsman, instead of looking at the ball, is looking at the scoreboard. Can he focus? No. He has to focus on the game. We have to focus in our work. We have to focus in whatever we do and not get affected by whether I'll succeed or fail, because then my concentration is reduced. Now, there is issue of focus. The other issue is remaining focused. Now, what I mean by that is, if I am focusing on my job and if I fail, then I feel so bad, I stop doing it. Then that's the end of it. I'll never succeed. If I succeed, I get so excited. I think I'm so good. I think I'm the best. I think I'm the greatest. I'll stop working. I'll stop improving to become better. So it's very interesting in the material plane, you know, in life, as we all know it, all of us are professionals. We go through life. We know that for us to continue growing and becoming better and better and better at what we're doing, we have to focus and remain focused and should not get caught up by whether we make money or lose money, whether we succeed or fail. We just focus. And that is, to me, the formula for success of being engaged without getting fixated on the results. This is on the material plane. Now, when you talk about the spiritual plane, you cannot stop chanting or stop praying or stop thinking of Lord Krishna because Krishna didn't come to you, because you don't feel different, because you don't suddenly get up and see the enlightenment. You cannot. You have to remain focused. You cannot let the result of what you do affect what you do. So why do we give up attachment to results? Because we want to remain focused in the work being done, the karma that we're doing, the prescribed duties that we're doing. Lord Krishna told Arjuna, focus on your work. You are here to fight. Fight! Don't worry about who win, who lose, who die, who doesn't die. Don't worry about that. Focus on the work. And by focusing on the work, you become more and more purified because that's your prescribed duty. And the more purified you become, the more closer you get to realize who you truly are. And that is what we mean by remaining focused in self-realization. Does that answer your question, Shobha?
Yes, very much. Thank you.
You're most welcome. So renunciation is not giving up actions. It is giving up attachment to the results of action. And what it needs is knowledge and purification, meaning it's a continual process. Without knowledge and purification, the path to spiritual advancement is destroyed. Without prescribed duties, we have unfulfilled desire for activity and lead to sinful action. So these are all interconnected. One leads to the other. So now we are talking about these three very important things. You must do your prescribed duties, because by doing the prescribed duties, you acquire knowledge. And the process of gaining knowledge will allow us to further purify. Like right now, all of us are gaining a lot of knowledge. You are making a lot of sacrifice for the sake of purifying your consciousness. So now, this is the next issue, going from karma kanda to karma yoga. What is this karma kanda? Karma kanda means fruitive activities, engage attachment. I do this, I must get that. If I pray to God, God must listen to my prayers. If I ask for this, I must get that. That kind of a engagement to get something is called karma kanda. You got to move from there to higher level, because karma kanda is only interested in satisfying material desires. It's just above animal life. But when we go and do this karma kanda, we become bound by these actions, you know, and that's where we get caught into this issue of karmic reactions. So how to go from there to there? We have to move up to karma yoga. So karma kanda to karma yoga. Non-fruitive actions. So instead of engage attachment, we have to think of going to engage detachment. Engage means engage in the work in order to purify, but detach from results so that we can continue to focus on what we're doing continuously. But how to do that? It's easy to say, it's very important to do, but how do we do that? That is by performing work as a sacrifice. Whatever we do as a sacrifice to Vishnu, we are relieved. So when we perform work for satisfaction of Krishna, not binding, there is no reaction. Under the guidance of spiritual master, gradually elevated, go back to Godhead, kingdom of God. But if we just take action which is fruitive, we do this to get that, do this to get that, sense gratification, good action or bad action, doesn't matter. We still go through a cycle of birth and death. So that is why the action that we take has to be in the context of sacrifice. I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it as a sacrifice for the welfare of others. Sacrifice as I'm doing my part in this world. So this is how we go up the ladder from karma kanda to karma yoga. And that's when you accept a transcendental goal known as yoga practitioner. And then you go up to jnana yoga. So this means we have to act based on a prescribed duty. So what do? Act according to prescribed duty. How do you do it? By acting without attachment and acting in the context of sacrifice. If I act because I am sacrificing my time, effort, energy for welfare of others, for society, for the benefit of humanity, then I am purifying myself. That is karma yoga. That is the purification process. So the yoga ladder says, now this is the lowest. You're a pretender, your mind dwells, you know, when the nature to act but cannot act, mind dwell solely pretender. You take sannyas, heart not clean, that's bad. But what you must do is you must focus on realizing that the soul is active and the Vedas recommend prescribed duties. And these prescribed duties, Varna, Ashrama, Dharma, elevates the consciousness. It purifies the heart. And when the heart is purified, we get transcendental knowledge. And when the heart becomes pure, we go into a jnana platform. Then we get knowledge. You see, the knowledge only comes when the heart is pure. If the heart is not pure, knowledge will not come. And then you can take sannyasi. So you see, how to get sannyasi, go through all this process. You can't just take sannyasi without going through all this process. And that is Lord Krishna's recommendation. That is the yoga ladder. Very interesting diagram which summarizes how and why, even with jnana platform, Lord Krishna recommends continue working with detachment. That is called niskama karma. Because with knowledge, we act. That's why you say Buddhi Yoga means acting with knowledge, with a mode of devotion. So this is fundamentally for people with a mode of goodness. People of mode of goodness, they are detached from food, they are situated in a jnana platform, they continue to work with detachment. Mode in passion, materials, attachment, sakama karma, attached to work and fruits. When you do karma yoga, you attach to fruits of your work. But if you're doing karma yoga under authority of Vedas, you're still attachment, sakarma. But gradually, you will get detached. So it is not a question of how and what we can do straight off. It's a question of gradual detachment. It's a belief, it's a faith, it's a trust. So if we slowly work towards serving the Lord, serving others, that's why seva is so important. When you do seva, you cannot do wrong because you're doing for others. Your thoughts are for others, not for yourself. So this is a gradual process of purification through action, which is recommended by Lord Krishna. So we'll be covering more details later about this topic. We'll be covering things like what happens if I'm already reached that stage where I'm already purified, okay? My heart is purified. I got jnana yoga. Can I stop? No, you still continue. Why? To set an example. But the one thing that is the biggest hurdle we all face, it's like a roadblock, obstacle, is lust. And lust is just the desire to enjoy the senses we have. Sense of sight, sense of taste, sense of hearing, that desire, that inherent is an obstacle. How do you overcome that? Again, that will be covered in this lovely chapter. So I think to summarize, I said that we are talking about relishing purity to action. And I said we'll be talking about understanding what actions we need to take to purify the heart. The answer is undertake actions that are prescribed according to the Vedas. That means do what you should do. And how do we do it? Detach from the result. Focus on the action and don't worry about the result, because we are not the doers. Just like the soul is not the doer, the body is the doer. So if you begin to relate to the soul, then you say, hey, what is that got to do with me? I'm the soul. The soul is not doing anything. I'm not the doer. I just am an instrument. And this is the basic concept in Karma Yoga. All right. I hope you enjoyed the session. Are there any more questions? Anybody want to make a comment so far on what we have covered? No? Okay, so what is the starting point now? Okay, we say we finish this. So what's the key takeaway from today? The key takeaway is focus on seva. If we can shift our mind from me to us, just that, we're already beginning to purify the heart. Because when we do seva, when we serve others, we have that service attitude, we lose ourselves in the service of others. And that itself is karma yoga. So let's have a belief in what we are talking about, and let's try to practice. If you are chanting, chant a little bit more. If you are spending arti for 5 minutes, try to spend 10 minutes. If you're thinking of Krishna for 2 minutes, try to think for 5 minutes. You know why? Lord Krishna promised Arjuna, work done in my name, for me, it's never lost. It remains. So, what do we have to lose? Okay? Yes, I will share the slides. I must admit, I have been a little bit behind. I've got the recordings for the first 2 sessions. I'm going to post it in the chat box, and I'm going to send this as well. The one just before we had some issue with the recording, I'm going to redo it again, and I'll post everything. So yes, I will share the slides. And the slides are not developed, and I took the slides by combining other materials that I've been researching on. So I hope I liked it. Those summary that I have was taken from another source, but I thought it was a wonderful way to summarize everything. At least we can see, you know, the relationship between different issues. Yes, I'll share you the slide, and I hope you have enjoyed it. Please tell your friends, your relatives, whoever, to come and join in, be an instrument to share this great study about the Bhagavad Gita. Because if you are an instrument for the Lord, that is the best service you can do for humanity. Let us all pray for each other's well-being, and let us have a wonderful week. I really look forward to seeing you next week to wrap up this chapter. All right. Thank you again very much. Jai Shri Krishna.